Thank you for joining us here at Silver Hand Meadery for our at-home honey tasting. My name is James. I will be guiding you on this palated journey of different varietal honeys and wildflower honeys, and these come from all over North America, and you can find them all here at Silver Hand Meadery. What you need in order to do this tasting is a couple different things, but it all came in that package that you got here. It is going to include your honey sticks. This is going to be for dipping into your honey. We also have a plate where you're going to put those honey sticks afterwards, and then also some water might be nice to cleanse your palate in between tastings. Last but not least, you have a tasting sheet. This is going to have all the list of different varietal honeys that we carry here at Silver Hand Meadery, and it's also going to help you figure out what type of tasting notes you're getting with each different honey that we're going to try. First, we're going to start with our wildflower honeys. So wildflower honeys are polyfloral, where the bees are feeding in on all sorts of different nectar sources. It could be a small backyard beekeeper, it could be a small farm, really anybody that doesn't have 5 square miles of more of one type of flower is going to produce a wildflower honey. So we're starting with Appalachian wildflower. It comes from the mountains of Virginia, so it is a Virginia honey. And this one is super rich. But first, before we start, there is a little trick to using these honey sticks because honey is a liquid, so it will drip. So when you dip into the honey, you're just going to hold it between your pointer finger and your thumb, and you're just going to swirl it back and forth. Here at Silver Hand Meadery, we call it the Silver Hand Swirl. So you're going to open up your jar. You're going to dip your stick down in there, and then you can just start swirling it as you get it up, and then I would put it in your mouth as soon as possible because it will drip. This one is super rich with confectionery notes like toffee, vanilla. It also has some dried fruit notes like dates or figs. But this one would be great for a lot of different uses. You can put it in teas, you can put it over baked goods. You can also put it over ice cream, which is one of the things I love to do. But one of the things that's nice about the Appalachian wildflower honey and other wildflower honeys, it's really like a time capsule because it captures one moment where the bees are feeding on different nectar sources that are blooming at different times throughout the year, and it's always going to taste a little bit different from each year. It might taste similar, such as this Appalachian wildflower honey. It always has those confectionery notes, but some years it's more toffee, some years it's more vanilla. So it really depends on what the bees are feeding on, but it captures that time, whether it's harvest in spring or summer, of what those bees are feeding on. The Appalachian wildflower honey, it's not only a honey that we love to use on all sorts of foods, but we also make mead here at the meadery. So with Appalachian wildflower honey, we use it in our Virginia Tonight. This is one of our traditional meads. It's one of the first that we came out with, and it uses Virginia wildflower and Appalachian wildflower honey. And what I love about it, it's aged in bourbon barrels. So it's got this wonderful floral and honey notes, but then it finishes with this nice bourbon note that completes it for me. Virginia Tonight goes well with cheeseburger, french fries, salad, pasta. Pretty much what I'm saying is it goes well with everything. I do serve at room temperature for myself because it brings out lovely bourbon notes. But if you serve it chilled, it's going to dampen that bourbon and bring out more honey. And it really brings it back to that traditional honey note that everybody looks for in that mead. We've tried the Appalachian wildflower honey. We're now going to get into mesquite. So we've gone from wildflower honeys, which are a bunch of different nectar sources that the bees are feeding on, to a varietal, a monofloral honey, where the bees are feeding on one nectar source. So we're going to bust out mesquite, which comes from Texas, where the bees are feeding on nothing but mesquite flowers. So a lot of people are aware of mesquite because of mesquite smoked meats, where you're smoking meats with the wood chips. This is actually coming from the flower, so these bees are pollinating those flowers and picking up that lovely nectar. And this one is quite unique because it has a natural barbecue smoke. So all the honeys that we're trying here, they're natural. Nothing has been synthetically added or flavored. They naturally taste different because of what the bees are feeding on. So these mesquite flowers, they lend to a honey that tastes like pear, passion fruit, so fruity with this natural barbecue smoke that to me kind of tastes like a barbecue chip bag. But because I get a lot of pear out of this, I like to put on a pear Gouda grilled cheese, ribs, grilled shrimp, all sorts of things. But just do that Silver Hand swirl and you can taste it from there. So the mesquite blossom, I like to use that on pear Gouda grilled cheese because that main tasting note I get is pear. So slice a pear, slice a Gouda, make it yourself a grilled cheese, and then drizzle this on it or dip the grilled cheese into it. But that's one of my favorite uses. You can also make vinaigrettes or barbecue sauces, but that's really up to you and your taste buds. So next we're going to do our blueberry blossom honey. Blueberry blossom honey that we get is from New Jersey, which happens to be one of the world's blueberry capitals. Blew my mind, I didn't know that. But this one is really fun because a lot of people know what blueberry tastes like. But this doesn't taste like blueberries because it's coming from the flower, not the fruit. So instead, this is gonna have bold notes of toffee, licorice, burnt sugar like creme brulee, and then some root beer notes at the end. So all these tasting notes that I'm describing, everybody has different taste buds. So I might taste toffee, I might taste burnt sugar, but you might taste licorice and root beer. So it's really up to you and your taste buds, and everybody's got an opinion about that, so there's no wrong answers. I get the toffee in the beginning, goes to the burnt sugar, which relates to me like creme brulee, and then I get that root beer at the end. This is one that I really love in teas, whether it's a dark tea like a black tea or an earthy tea, or maybe even like a sweeter tea, like a green tea. This one really brings out those lovely flavors. I also find that blueberry blossom goes great with cheese. If you're not fancy enough to have some cheese, Cheez-Its work just as well. Not only do we like to enjoy the blueberry blossom in its honey state, we also like to make mead with it. So we make a mellow mel here at Silver Hand Meadery, and mellow mels are meads fermented with fruit. So we have all blues, where we use 75 pounds of fresh blueberries, blueberry blossom honey from New Jersey, and it's aged in French oak chips. I enjoy it with peppered pork, peppered steak, maybe some creme brulee. It is one that we serve chilled because it brings out wonderful crisp berry notes. I also like to enjoy it room temperature, which brings out these dark jammy notes. Our next honey that we're gonna try is buckwheat. Buckwheat's a type of grain, and it creates this fantastic honey. It's really fun though because it's got some interesting tasting notes. So buckwheat is going to be cherry Tootsie Roll with a pungent, earthy note. This one's one that I love to use with maybe like a pork tenderloin, make a syrup with it, like an elderberry or currant syrup with it. But I do love it on a pork tenderloin that I can bacon wrap, maybe bacon wrapped asparagus or bacon wrapped scallops. For some reason, the bacon wrapped is an important part for me. But again, very bold and very earthy. But the first notes you're probably gonna get are gonna be cherry and Tootsie Roll. And then those earthy notes set in. If you wanna get the earthy quality, breathe in, breathe out, really let it get into your olfactory senses. The earthy notes are sometimes described as wet hay or barnyard, so I do describe it as a Tootsie Roll you dropped at the petting zoo, but it's really, if you find out the right use for it, it is a fantastic honey. Not only is it good for cooking and making delicious mead, but it's also great for sore throats or a cough. As you start to taste that honey, you might notice that it really coats your throat and everything. So if you have a cough, if you have a sore throat, take a teaspoon of it. Even better, a tablespoon, or you may enjoy it in a tea. We are going to get into our rare honey category. So what makes a honey rare is that it's hard to come by. So sometimes these nectar sources, they're either not able to be grown everywhere, or they're very a small season of them blooming and producing nectar. So we're gonna start with our first rare honey, which is Tupelo. Tupelo is fresh, crisp. It is quite amazing on the taste buds. We get this from a small part of Georgia, and like I said, it's really fresh and crisp. I get a lot of fruit like oranges and apples. And something that you might notice as you start to taste it is it has a really unique beeswax quality. If you've ever been around a warm beehive, the smell of the propolis, the beeswax, and the honey, it has a very distinct warm beehive smell, and that's what I taste in the Tupelo honey itself. I would put it on ice cream, apple slices, fruit, yogurt. I would really do anything and everything with this Tupelo because it is quite decadent. You guys might have noticed that the honey that's sitting on your counter may have crystallized at some point. That is natural. That doesn't mean that it's gone bad because, well, honey never goes bad. And something that's really cool about the Tupelo honey is that it doesn't crystallize. The different constituencies of the different types of sugar in there keeps it from crystallizing. Where goldenrod honey, that crystallizes very quickly. So different honeys will crystallize faster and slower. Some do and some don't. If you do find that you have crystallized honey at home, don't panic. All you have to do is put it in a warm water bath. So get some warm water into a bowl, put that jar into that warm water, and then just let it set for a couple of minutes. It'll liquefy down, it'll taste just as delicious. It might crystallize in the next couple of weeks or months again, but you know what to do from there. And since you guys have been enjoying this honey so much, I also just want to let you guys know that we do have them in large jars. Otherwise, we're gonna finish up with our whipped honey. So you guys might not be familiar with whipped honey. I know I was new to it until I came to Silver Hand, but it's a creamy honey. So we actually make it here in-house. As we spoke, raw honey crystallizes, so we take advantage of that. We take crystallized honey, we mix it with liquid honey, we blend it all together, we set it in the fridge for about a week. Once it's at room temperature and stays there, it's gonna be this creamy peanut butter-like consistency. So today we're tasting Lavender Lemon. It's one of our new honeys, and it is fantastic. It is fresh. It to me tastes like spring just because it's floral and zesty, but it's pretty much great on everything. So this one you don't have to worry about it dripping, which is one of the reasons why I enjoy whipped honey so much. That means you can sit on the couch and enjoy it by the spoonful without worrying about making a mess. But you can get in there, make a nice swirl of it, and then enjoy. But not only is it just great on a stick, it's also great on maybe scones and maybe some Earl Grey tea or some jasmine tea, over ice cream, biscuits, pretty much anything, and it is quite delectable. And the first thing I notice is how creamy it is. And then I get that light floral notes, and it's really a perfect finishing for an at-home honey tasting with Silver Hand Meadery. I'm glad you guys joined in. I look forward to seeing you guys again.